Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone, and the Eastern Conference is a confusing mess as of right now. There's a lot going on throughout this season in the East, and it goes all the way from the top where we've got a new juggernaut towards the bottom where the Sixers can't seem to get anybody on the court, and everybody in the middle, teams that were in slumps are back, teams that were back are in slumps, trade rumors, everything in between. It has been a weird season, and there's so much I want to talk about with almost every squad out there, so I just want to go through the East and kind of cover all the narratives that are intertwining between these teams right now. And of course, I want to start up at the top with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who I did not expect. I thought they would be good this season. I think I had them around like a 4 or 5 seed, but I never would have guessed they were 33-4. If you told me that before the season, I would have said you were genuinely insane, because there was no way that this Cavs team was going to be on a 73 win pace. But here we are. They're just dominant. They're on a 12-game win streak. They've got statistically one of the best offenses ever. They're good defensively, and they've got an argument to have 4 all-stars. Donovan Mitchell not even really having a very good season by his standards, but he's stepping up when they need him. And the reason they don't need him that often is because Darius Garland is back to his usual self. He's been one of the best guards in the NBA period this year. Evan Mobley has taken a jump. Jared Allen is doing the typical stuff we expect, but continuing last year where he kind of had his best season and nobody really noticed it because they dealt with so many injuries. Kenny Atkinson's got them playing well. The role players are amazing. The Cavs are just a juggernaut. Coming into the season, I wasn't sure if anybody could challenge Boston at the top of the conference, and here they are, just completely dominating and pulling away. They're 6.5 games ahead of the Celtics for the 1 seed right now, and I would be shocked if they didn't land that top spot, and there's a real chance that they end up with 70 wins. That's crazy. That has hardly ever happened in history, and this Cavs team is not a squad that I expected to be that good. I thought they'd be good, but not all-time great. Through roughly this first half of the season, they have been easily the most convincing team in the Eastern Conference, which brings us to a conversation about the reigning champion Boston Celtics, who last year were historically good. They kind of ran through the playoffs, and I talked all year about how good they were. I was proven right in the end, and coming into the season, I still expected them to be representing the East in the NBA Finals, and right now, I'm very split between them and the Cavs as the team that would end up facing the winner of the West, as it seems like most of you are, because I tweeted out asking, who do y'all have at this point winning the East? And it was pretty much split 50-50 from what I saw leading into my recording between the Celtics and the Cavs and a few other teams sprinkled in there. I'm pretty sure one of you said the Hornets, which I don't know why you're embarrassing yourself, but yeah, it's between these two teams, it feels like, and the Celtics have not been as convincing as they were last season. Over their last 12 games, they're 6-6, which is never a stretch you would have seen from last year's team. And I know they've dealt with some injuries throughout the season, but even last year, it didn't matter who was out there. They were still kind of running teams off the court by 15 plus points on any given night. You could have had Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and KP out, and they're still probably going to win by 20 plus. This season, it's not been the case. And over this bad stretch that they've been having, or bad relative to what we typically see from the Celtics, they lost to the Magic with no Paolo or Franz. They lost to the Sixers on Christmas. They lost to the Bulls. That's tough. They just recently, last night, lost to the Sacramento Kings by 17 points with no De'Aaron Fox at home. And last year, the Celtics pretty much never lost at home. This year, they've already got more home losses than they had all of last season. I'm not ready to say that I'm concerned, but I'm not nearly as all in on them as it was last year when I kept telling people they're going to run through the Eastern Conference. This is a dominant, historic team. It hasn't felt like that so far this season. And a big issue for them recently has been their fourth quarter execution. They've been one of the worst defenses in the NBA over this recent stretch in those fourth quarters. They just kind of fall apart, and it feels like the later in the game that they get, the less they know what to do. And that was something that was kind of a theme of the Celtics for years up until last season when they really kind of honed in on it. It feels like they're getting back to some of their old ways. It's not been a great season scoring-wise from Jrue Holiday. KP, of course, started the season out of the lineup. He's recently got back, so he's kind of still finding his groove in the fold. Jaylen Brown, it's not been his best offensive season. There are just some things that are slightly concerning. Again, I'm not ready to say that I'm out on the Celtics or anything, but I hope they kind of figure it out a little bit because I want to see them at the peak of their powers against the Cavs with the way that they've been playing this season in the Eastern Conference Finals. And they've just not been quite the Celtics that we saw run through the NBA last season up to this point. Then you've got the Knicks at the 3 seed right now, and last night I actually saw them play live at Madison Square Garden against, of course, my favorite team, the Thunder, and they got annihilated. It wasn't really ever close. The Thunder were up by 27 at halftime, and most of the fourth quarter was played between the team's two benches, and that's been a theme with the Knicks. They have a 25-14 record. They're only 2.5 2.5 games back of the Celtics for the 2 seed. So they're having an overall great season, but when you put them up against the top teams in the NBA, like the Cavs and the Celtics and the Thunder, they have really not performed. They're 0-5 against the top teams in either conference, and they've lost those games by like a point differential of 86. They have been getting blown out by the NBA's best teams. For a majority of the year, the big concern with the Knicks has been the defense. I mean, last night against the Thunder, they gave up a million open looks. Isaiah Joe went out there and had a 30-piece, and there were some really tough buckets, but he was kind of just getting wide open a lot of the time. The Knicks were missing rotations. They were never going to stop SGA from getting down low. There was one play where he pretty much walked to the basket. They're not a very good defensive team. They're about league average right now, and it feels like they're just slow on a lot of their movements, and that comes along with recently their three-point shooting being really flaky. Sometimes it's really good. A lot of times it's really bad. Like last night, they couldn't hit a three for anything. Mikal Bridges couldn't knock down a shot to save his life, and that led to boos, very loud boos from the Knicks crowd about Mikal's play. Yeah, like their record's still really good, but there are some concerns. The depth is also kind of weak, and all of that kind of coincides with everybody on this team playing absurd minutes. Now, that's always been the Tom Thibodeau thing, is he plays his starters a lot, but like Mikal Bridges is almost averaging 40 minutes a night. That's concerning because you get to the playoffs and you're going to face like the Cavs potentially, who have spent a lot of the season resting guys in fourth quarters because they've been up by so much. I know the Knicks have to play those guys because they don't have a lot of depth, but you might want to at least try a couple of other players and see what they can do to get guys some minutes off of these legs, because we saw last year in the playoffs against the Pacers, they just completely collapsed. And I'm not saying every injury was because Tibbs was playing his guys a lot of minutes, but there was a lot of wear and tear, and you could just see that by the end of their season, the guys were just completely exhausted. I worry about them in multiple series because of that fact. So that's a little bit about the Knicks. They've been confusing. Again, can't beat the good teams, but are able to beat up a lot of the bad teams. And I just worry about all those things with the minutes and the lack of depth and the overall inconsistent defense coinciding in the worst way when they get to the playoffs. And then speaking of confusing teams, there are the Milwaukee Bucks, who won the NBA Cup and looked really good coming into that. They really turned their season around, and they're on a 3-game win streak right now, but since the NBA Cup, it's been very up and down. Chris Middleton, I still have no idea what we're going to get from him on a regular basis as he continues to recover from double ankle surgeries. Giannis has been insane. Dame is still having a really good season. And overall, I mean, they are a top 4 team in the conference, so there's not a lot to complain about, but they just still don't feel like contenders to me. They don't feel like a team that can compete at all with Cleveland or Boston. You know, the Knicks are interesting depending on what they look like. Again, it's a very up and down team at times. Yeah, I don't really know what they do. It feels like they have to make a move of some kind, but they don't have the assets. So they're just kind of in like the twilight zone of the Eastern Conference, where it's like, yeah, they've got Giannis and Dame. They've got 2 top players, so they could probably pull off some upsets. But I don't know how much I trust Doc Rivers and the overall depth of this team and the defense, which has been looking a lot better as of late, but just in a series against a top team, I don't know what it's going to look like. Yeah, they're a very confusing team. The Magic are kind of just a complete unknown in the NBA right now. They have a 22-18 record, and that's with Paolo and Franz both missing a majority of the season. And before Paolo went down with injury, he was looking like an all-NBA type player. And last night, he came back against the Bucks in a game that the Magic did lose, but he played just 27 minutes and had 34, 7, and 3. So if Paolo continues to play like he did before the injury, like he showed last night, and they can get Franz back with this high-level defense, I think the Magic could really make a push and maybe even end up in Eastern Conference Finals. If they get like the perfect matchups, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility because of how well coached this team is, how good that defense is, and the way that their top stars were looking before they went down with injury. So they feel like a sleeping giant that could pull off some unbelievable upsets if they got the right matchups. The Pacers are kind of back. Tyrese Halliburton has been playing really well as of late, and they've managed to rocket up the standings. They're now just half a game out of a top 4 seed themselves after it felt like they were kind of dead in the water. And again, a lot of that is Halliburton getting back to his usual self. Siakam's been playing well. This team has dealt with some injuries, but despite them, they're really finding their best footing right now. They're currently on a 5-game win streak. Yeah, Indiana's putting it together. This was a team that felt like could take a jump this season, and then it was very disappointing to begin the year. But the jump it felt like they could take is now happening about halfway through the year. And so that makes me wonder, what do they look like in a potential series like them versus the Knicks? What happens there? Could the Pacers pull off that upset? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. That's the current 6-3 matchup. Like Bucks Magic right now at a 4-5 would be incredible. Right now we get Celtics versus Heat in the first round, which would be very fun because the Heat are, of course, in the midst of just an insane saga with Jimmy Butler. He's taking every subliminal, or not even very subliminal, just kind of maybe direct shot at Pat Riley that he can, whether it's him at his Big Face Coffee location and he's helping an employee out with something and he's complimenting him and he's like, see, this is what you should do as a boss. You should compliment your employees. series, which of course is a jab at Pat Riley telling Jimmy Butler to shut up after last year's loss to the Celtics where he was on the bench. He wants to be traded. It seems like he's trying to force his way to Phoenix, but there's no way for Phoenix to make that move. At least I don't think there is. So yeah, we're kind of just at a standstill. Bam Adebayo is just bad for some reason this season. You've got Tyler Hero, who's having a career year in the midst of everything. It's just complete chaos over there in Miami. They still are 19-17, which is, I guess, better than I would have expected with everything going on. But yeah, they are a complete disaster right now, which adds to the messiness of this conference. The Pistons are way better than they were last year. They've been one of my favorite storylines, and I think a Cade Cunningham specific video is coming at some point here soon, but he's been an all-star, maybe even all-NBA level player this season. They're 19-19. They unfortunately lost Jaden Ivey for what feels like is going to be a little bit. He fractured, I can't remember if it was like his tibia, his fibula, something with his leg. So when he comes back, that'll be big. And it also sounds like the Pistons might be buyers in this market. Now there's rumors popping up about a Brandon Ingram trade, and I like it. I think they should go for this. Make it into the playoffs. Do whatever you can to be a playoff team. If the season ended today, they would have 2 chances in the play, and they were the 8th seed. And if they could beat a very dysfunctional Miami Heat team who currently has suspended Jimmy Butler, they would be in the NBA playoffs. And that would be such a big win for Detroit. I mean, last season they had 14 wins. They've already got 19. We're not even halfway through the season, so they've been a big plus. The Hawks also looking a lot better this season. They're 19-19 as of right now. It's not been Trey's most efficient scoring season, but he's been playmaking out of his mind. Jalen Johnson is having a real MIP type campaign. Dyson Daniels is one of the craziest steal accumulators I've ever seen. Yeah, they're playing some really good basketball. And then you get to like the Bulls, who are going to blow it up for sure around this deadline. And they're having a great season, all things considered. I mean, 18 wins is pretty close to the mark I thought they would have overall on the season. And I do think they're going to descend a lot when we get to the deadline. And they're probably able to deal Vooch, Zach LaVine, and maybe even like Alonzo Ball for some actual assets, because LaVine has really rebuilt up his trade value. He's looking amazing. Vucevic is having a career year. So all in all, it's been a big win for them on the season. Then we have the Sixers, who I don't even know what to say about them. Embiid continues to deal with injury. Last night, they lost to the Pelicans, who are at the bottom of the Western Conference. The Pelicans had 7 wins coming into the night. And I know there was no Joel Embiid for this one, but even still, you still got Tyrese Maxey, you've got Paul George, you've got, I think, a pretty solid cast of role players, and they fell to a team that was led by CJ McCollum and DeJounte Murray, who aren't bad players, but like, this is a game that the Sixers need to win. They got to continue to move up in the standings. And all year I've thought, eventually they're going to find their way into the playoff picture, but most of these Eastern Conference teams are figuring it out. At this point, the Sixers are 4.5 games back of the 6-seeded Pacers, who are really ramping it up. I don't know if they're going to be able to catch them, so they might end up as a playing team again, and that puts you either in a matchup against the Celtics, who have continuously dismantled the Sixers in the playoffs and are still a juggernaut, or the Cleveland Cavaliers, who might win 70 games. So it's been a nightmare season from the Sixers. You've now got Paul George saying that he's bored trying to play the 5 for the Sixers in the midst of the Embiid injury, so it feels like there might be some tension there. It's been a mess of a season, and I really don't know where it goes from here. I continue to think if they could just get everybody out there in the court, maybe they could do something, but I might just be delusional. And then we get to the tanking teams at the bottom, where the Nets, for some reason, already have 13 wins. They found a way to be highly competitive all throughout the beginning of the season. Now that they've traded some guys, and I think they're going to trade Cam Johnson before the deadline, they will continue to descend down the standings. Jordy Fernandez, though, great head coach. Excited to see what he can do in the future. The Hornets have had a lot of injuries, but LaMelo might be an all-star starter. He's going to be up there in all-NBA talks. I mean, it's crazy. He's leading the Eastern Conference all-star voting for guards by like a significant margin. He's got some real pull with NBA fans, and I feel like as they continue to get him and Mark Williams and Brandon Miller out there in the court, if they can get Trey Mann back from injury, this is a team that isn't going to make it into the play-in, but they will be more competitive than they've been through this first half of the season. The Raptors have pulled off a great tank where their guys are playing pretty well. I've liked a lot of what I've seen, but they are still racking up losses continuously. It's exactly what they should be doing. And then the Wizards at the bottom of the standings, 6-30 at the moment. Yeah, they're going for Cooper Flag, who just had a 40-piece today for Duke, so that's exciting if you're the Wizards. Alex Sarr is my favorite right now, or at least in that conversation for Rookie of the Year. It's probably between him and Jalen Wells if I had to pick somebody right now. The defense has been phenomenal. He's legitimately like a plus player at this point. The offense has been coming along. I liked a lot of what I've seen from like Bilal Coulibaly. Jordan Poole is back when they trade Kuzma, and they continue this youth movement. If they can add a Cooper Flag, like Bilal, Coop, and then Alex Sarr as that 3-man tandem in your front court is going to be devastating defensively. Yeah, I think they're doing some pretty good stuff over there. And overall in the Eastern Conference, it's been a lot of fun. Way more fun than I think I was expecting, because I really just kind of anticipated like the Celtics running running away with the 1 seed, and then, you know, you would have like the Knicks and the Bucks and the Pacers, the Magic, the Cavs, all those teams, the Sixers, if they could stay healthy, some combination fighting for that 2 seed in the Eastern Conference and so on and so forth. But I didn't expect the Pistons to be this good. I, of course, didn't expect the Cavs to be dominating right now. I didn't expect all these interesting storylines in the middle, the Jimmy Butler trade saga. There's a lot to be excited about in the Eastern Conference. It's a mess, but it's an exciting, chaotic, very fun mess that I'm happy we're seeing. I'm happy it's not just a one-team conference like it felt like it might be. Instead, we're getting some really fun stuff right now, and I'm excited to see the way it continues to go throughout the season. Let me know down below in the comments what's been your favorite storyline in the East so far this season. If your favorite team is out there, how do you feel about the season that they've been having so far? Has it been good, bad, met your expectations? Also, let me know right now who you would have winning the Eastern Conference. Is it Boston still? Is it the Cavaliers with the way that they've been playing? Have they convinced you? Do you still think like a Knicks or a Bucks or maybe even like the Magic or someone like that could go ahead and pull off a miracle and end up winning it? I'd love to hear your thoughts, but for the moment, I appreciate you watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you've enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I'll see y'all later. Real One Say back.